Hi people, another quick video, and this one is to address Boris Johnson and his new rule of 6, or better it should be called Boris and his rule of 666, and I'll tell you why a little later on in the video. But first let's go to Boris and see what he has to say.
In England from Monday we're introducing the rule of 6. You must not meet socially in groups of more than 6, and if you do, you will be breaking the law.
Breaking the law, hey? Well, let's have a look at that, because obviously before this announcement it wasn't a law, so they've brought it in record time. They haven't consulted the public. There's been no debate in the public as to whether people are agreeable to this law, but it's been thrusted on us in record time, as all these things are done, like the coronavirus bill was thrusted upon us in record time. So I just want to address that quickly. By what power are they using to say that human beings who have sovereign over their own bodies, their minds and their lives, hopefully, have to abide by a law that is going to restrict them? And I will suggest it's not only going to restrict them in their movements, it's going to start to psychologically make them believe that they are a biohazard to other people, if we haven't already started to believe this. We're all supposed to be in fear of other people now, breaking down the natural instincts of human beings to bond. And the police are going to be given certain powers. Let's go back to Boris.
Indoors or outdoors, at home or in the pub. The ban will set out in law and be set out in law, and it will be enforced by the police. And anyone breaking the rules risks being dispersed, fined and possibly arrested.
Now, if anybody watched my video before this one to do with the schools, I showed a video in which a guy was dragged off a train by police officers. And now police officers are going to have the power to basically divide up people if they deem that you are breaking the so-called law. But remember, there's different kinds of laws that people operate by. There's higher laws that mean if you harm somebody, yeah, you're liable to be found guilty of that. But then there's man-made laws, the lower laws, the acts, statutes, and this is one of those acts and statutes now, which are basically there to monitorize us. And as we can see, they're going to be fining us £100, and this can escalate up to over £2,000. But I want to show you what a liar is. And when people tell lies, there's usually more lies to follow. But I want to identify a liar for you, and this is Mr. Hancock. Let's see why he claims this new law is coming into place, this new rule of 666 is coming into place, this new demonic law. Why is it coming into place?
We've taken this action having seen the rise in cases in the last couple of days, and knowing from our contact tracing system that most people who are catching the virus are catching it in social settings. And people wanted more clarity on the rules. So the rules are super simple. You can only gather in groups of up to 6, except in circumstances like you're at school, you're at work, or some very limited events like weddings and funerals.
So basically this man is claiming that because of the rise in deaths, they have to find a new measure that's going to be easy for people to remember, something that's very easy for people to remember, the rule of 6. And, you know, there's been a lot of confusion, so they're simplifying it for us because we're fools. The human population in the UK are fools. So they're going to find a way to make it easy for us and to bring in this rule of 6. So he states that there's been a rise in cases. But I'm going to take you all back to something that happened earlier on in this coronavirus fiasco. And it was the government, the NHS, and government agencies like the army, police and so forth, coming all together to create hospitals. Because in a pandemic, we needed emergency measures to bring in hospitals that would take care of the deaths, because there's many deaths, isn't there? So I'm going to show you some of these hospitals that pops up all over the place. Let's go in.
So Hayley, we're standing outside the new Nightingale Hospital. It's being built as we speak. Are you impressed by how quickly it's been prepared?
I am so impressed. Never in my career have I ever seen a hospital built in the way that we've built the Nightingales, both in London, Manchester, Birmingham here and other sites. 20 days to build what is a hospital is just unbelievably impressive.
What's your job going to be here?
So as Chief Nurse of the Bristol Nightingale, my role is to ensure that our patients receive really high quality care, but also that our staff, our colleagues that work here are kept safe and that we look after their well-being.
What standard of care will there be here? Is it as good as being treated at a normal hospital?
Absolutely, I would really want to emphasise that. So yes, we're on a university campus and we've built it in 20 days, but the standards of care that we hold dear for our patients are the same standards that you'd find in any other hospital across the UK.
And as these hospitals were springing up all over the country, we had one of the members of the paedophilic family come forward, Prince Charles, who was opening one of the hospitals and gave his take on it.
The creation of this hospital is, above all, the result of an extraordinary collaboration and partnership between NHS managers, the military, and all those involved to create a centre on a scale that has never been seen before in the United Kingdom.
Now, these emergency Nightingale hospitals that they were called, they weren't just happening here in the UK, they're happening all over the world. And one of the novel hotspots where this pandemic was supposed to be problematic was New York. So let's go in and look what was happening in New York.
As COVID-19 cases rise to over 2 million worldwide, countries have been converting stadiums, convention centers, and even parks into emergency field hospitals.
Hospitals and clinics are quickly becoming overwhelmed with patients. So really the purpose of these field hospitals is to ease some of that pressure.
With more than 110,000 COVID-19 cases by April 14th in New York City alone, 4 emergency field hospitals have gone up across the city, and 2 more are underway. The city's biggest and one of the largest in the country is the Javits Center. Javits has a history of being called on during emergencies, first as a FEMA headquarters after 9/11, then as a collection site for donations during Hurricane Maria. To battle COVID-19, FEMA was brought in on March 20th to design the Javits Center Medical Facility. Altogether, it took 4 days to complete the first phase of 1,000 beds.
In just 1 week, the Javits Center looks entirely different. And this is a place that's literally going to save lives.
With thousands more beds slated to be built in the coming weeks, many believe Javits would be the saving grace over crowded hospitals in Manhattan so desperately needed. But it wasn't as helpful as everyone had hoped. It was originally meant to handle non-COVID-19 patients.
The thing is, nobody's leaving their house right now, right? So there are very, very few non-COVID related illnesses and injuries. So the center was sitting empty while hospital hallways were packed with COVID patients because there just wasn't enough room for them.
On April 2nd, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that Javits' new mission would be to treat COVID-19 cases. On that same day, Javits' second phase of bed construction was completed, and Cuomo designated 2,500 of them for COVID-19. But much to the frustration of healthcare workers, since that announcement, Javits has taken in nowhere near its capacity. As of April 7th, the convention center had admitted only 66 patients.
So they call them field hospitals, and as it says in this little segment that I showed, they were popping up all over the place. And they were very proud of the fact that they were being built in record time, just like they were very proud that they were being built at massive cost here in record time. But at the end of this clip, it said that they were hardly used. 66 patients in a hospital that was designed for 1,000 people. Interesting. Okay, so what about the hospitals here? Were they ever used? Well, we had news stories like this fake news story that I'm going to show you now. And if anybody's got eyes and understanding to see, this isn't at the end of some virus, some pandemic. This isn't at the end. This is mid-pandemic, so to speak, where they're putting out fake news stories like this, where all we can see is NHS staff, no patients, but they're saying that one patient has been healed in this Nightingale Hospital. Take a look.
We're really proud to have played our part in saving Mr. Jones' life. Hugely poignant moment for us. It's a very special moment for us. Our staff have worked really, really hard. We're really, really proud of what we've achieved. We're part of a much bigger system in London, but we're really proud to have played our part in helping him to get back to his family and back to his community.
It's interesting that this hospital, totally empty, but this PR exercise that they did for the press and for people that are seduced by the mainstream media, obviously not real, because articles like this started coming out. Why are the hospitals still empty? Just here in the UK? No, what about in places like Venezuela? Always having reasons why the hospitals are empty.
Los hospitales se encuentran vacíos porque el personal que allí labora tiene temor. ¿Temor de qué? De que contagiarse del virus, dado que no tiene la...
So in this global pandemic, we have a situation where hospitals all over the world are empty. And the hospitals that were specifically built for the overflow of people, of the rising deaths, were never used. Only for big PR stunts. You know, the cameras were there when these hospitals were being built in record time. Nurses were being interviewed. Princes from the paedophilic royal family were opening the hospitals. But we don't hear anything about them now. There's no cameras going down there now and asking, well, why are they empty? And at what cost are they being kept empty? And will these ever be used? Will they be used in the future? Who knows? Will they start being used after the vaccine comes out? Who knows? So, the law, the rule of 666, sorry, I've just changed it all. I like to call it the rule of 666 because I believe it is a demonic thing that they're doing to program the people, indoctrinate the people, and make the people believe that their lives are in so much danger that they have to segregate themselves from the rest of humanity and keep themselves in these so-called bubbles. We must understand the words that are being used, and we understand the psychological warfare that's taking place on the planet at the moment. The other day I had to fight YouTube to make my videos stay up about the schools, and I don't know if this one will be taken down, but I've spoke to a YouTuber with 10 years experience, and she told me this: if they take down my channel, just keep on doing it, keep on pushing, keep on speaking out, and that's what I'm going to do. She also said that she will be speaking out soon and making videos again. She hasn't done it in a while. And I think that's brilliant. You know why? Because so many people are waking up and so many people are finding their voice at this time and having to get over the fear, you know, to speak out. And when one person speaks out, it gives people the permission to speak out, to find their voice and stand up and say this. Well, I'm going to use the term that she used: diabolical tyranny that's happening. So this rule of 666, I know that many people are going to abide by it, but while you're abiding by this rule of 666, what's happening to your soul, your spirit, whatever you believe is the higher part of you, is being destroyed. I'm just the bringer of the news. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you the truth. I know how it feels when people are looking at me as a biohazard, because sometimes I haven't got a mask on, giving me that look, giving me that how dare you look. Well, listen, it's like this. I want to live as a free human being, a sovereign human being on this planet, and I do not want to be chained by the rule of 6, the rule of this, the rule of that. and be thrown in the mix and not have any way out psychologically and spiritually. I don't want that. So it's important for people to understand what's happening. Now, if this rule of 6 was really about saving lives, then I would be behind it. But don't ask for who the bell rings. It rings for you. Join me in opposing these restrictions and these methods that the system is trying to use in order to destroy us. It is a diabolical time on the planet. It is a time of change, of worry, you know, and humanity is being broken down. I said to somebody yesterday that it really seems like we're in some kind of science fiction film, and we're in this trying to fight for our freedom and trying to fight for, you know, just to have a normal life, just to live in a way that is not controlled, just to live in a way that's not going to break our spirits, break our minds, and, you know, change us from being humans into something else. Because part of being human is being able to show people love and understanding, you know, being able to join and celebrate things that are important to us, you know, being able to call up your friends and go out shopping or go and see a film, go and, you know, go to a club, go to a pub, go, you know, whatever is part of your social makeup. That's what is about, you know, humanity. I've never really been to going to sporting events, but people like this. Are you going to be able to go to the races? Really? Or are we going to be trapped in places like little prisons where we are viewing things online and stuff like this? Now, these are little baby steps into mind control, into the control of humanity, little baby steps. But the elite and the rulers of this planet are on a time scale, and they need to bring those controls in pretty fast. So over the next months and years, we're going to see more staged events in order to bring more control in. So I'm going to end this video with what's happening in Australia at the moment, and another friend who is a very special person who's doing a lot of work to do with truth as well, highlighted me to what's happening in Melbourne and other parts of Australia to do with martial law. And we're not far away from that. But in this country, I think they fear that we will start rioting and doing stuff like that. So they don't want to bring in the people with the guns on the street too fast. But it's not that far away, is it? And you know something, just before I finish with this final thing. In the past, I used to wonder how places like Nazi Germany came about. But I think we're seeing something very similar taking place, because the police, who I have a checkered history with, are actually human beings. But they've sold themselves out to this corporate, diabolical, satanic system. They're no longer working for us, the people. They're working for a system that has monetarized the people and is looking at us as just numbers, trying to make us believe that they have our best interest at heart when they don't. So I'm going to leave you now, but have a think as you watch this and think about the future you want. Goodbye for now.
Good evening, Peter, and good evening to all of your viewers right around Australia. Well, we're stuck in martial law in Melbourne tonight. I mean, this is like Poland in 1981. I mean this quite seriously. This is not overblown. For those of you who are having a very pleasant evening, most probably in Sydney or Brisbane tonight, we are stuck in martial law in Melbourne because we have a megalomaniac of a premier. Because this decision to lock Melbourne down from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. has been made under a separate set of provisions to the state of emergency powers. It's been made under the state of disaster. It's essentially been dictated to by the Premier to the Police Minister onto the people of Victoria. And we've heard today that the Chief Health Officer was consulted but provided no advice. This is the definition of a police state. This is arbitrary government. This is what we're taught about in history classes. This is called arbitrary government, government where there is no rationale behind a decision except for subduing a group of people into submission and ensuring they do exactly what they are told. This is the politics of fear at its absolute worst. It is an abomination. I mean, I hope tomorrow in the newspapers there is column inches upon column inches about how this is so profoundly perverse in an Australian English-speaking context that it must never be allowed to ever happen again.